coming up next on The Health Hustle.
Don't change who you are because someone else is successful at it. So like if you're seeing someone else if you're looking at Matt Choi and you're saying, man, like he's successful, I need to make myself like him, you are absolutely fucking wrong. Be you, completely, fully transparent. Like that's another thing that came out of that conversation where I leaned more into being me. Like I didn't lean into like memes. You know me. You know me. How like I'm the funny guy. Like that. I'm not changing that about me. Like I just started leaning more into me and who you see on Instagram, the edgy, the cussing, the like that is who I am, and that is what has gotten me into a place where I'm being compensated to run because brands are coming to me and saying we love that you are you, and that you're different than everyone else. And so my biggest advice on business is like if you see someone, don't try to be like them. Like yeah, like you can pick up some of their strategies, but don't change who you are. Don't try to fit the mold of being them. Be you.
Great advice.
I love that. I think I'd say having self-awareness on like what you want to spend your time on. I think early on as a creator, like you're having to do everything. And at some point you have to make decisions on like what is going to be the first hire, like where am I going to allocate resources to start doing X, Y, and Z. And I think something that is very beneficial, and it's something that a lot of people ask about like management, like should a creator get a manager? Like I think honestly, no, especially early on. I think you should try to understand and figure out how to negotiate. And if you're comfortable negotiating, you should also understand how to like do the post-production of content and all the things. Like you have to have your hands in a lot of things to start out. You're not gonna be the best at all of them, but before you hire somebody to start allocating resources to, you need to understand how to do it first so that you can then see what kind of work they're actually giving you. So I think a lot of that comes with self-awareness and understanding like where you want to spend your time as you continue to scale and grow bigger.
What up, y'all? Corey here. In this episode, I had a chance to sit down with Matt Choi and Matt Johnson, and this was an obnoxiously fun episode for me. Partly selfish. I've had them actually both on the show before individually, but never together. And the reason that I wanted to bring them on is because I wanted to cover content creation, but more specifically storytelling, which they are both masters of. Between the two of them, they've been able to grow over 500,000 followers, and they've done it through really good storytelling and good content creation. And I believe that storytelling is the fundamentals of a strong brand, business, and community. And so if this is something you want to do for yourself, I definitely recommend sticking around and checking out this episode. We get into all the ins and outs, a masterclass, even dealing with haters, which they have both dealt with in a number of situations. But I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode, so check it out. One last thing, if you're a health or fitness professional and you're having difficulties getting leads, one of the most common reasons that I see this is not having a well-defined niche. If you go to the link in the description, I have a free 3-step process that walks you through exactly how to get clarity on which niche is best suited for you and your business. Without further ado, let's go.
Matt Squared.
How did I find myself on the pod with these two gentlemen?
That's what I felt when. Are we recording?
We are.
That's how I felt when I thought Jeremy was going to be here. Is I was like, like you walk into a room and you're like, there's one person that doesn't belong here, and it's fucking me. Like, why am I at this table right now, bro? But here I am.
I've been planning this podcast episode, I'm not going to lie, for like months now. It was something that was in the back of my mind. I was like, man, these three, and I was very intentional about picking people that I felt like would jive on some level, because there's a lot of other creators that I could have pulled onto this show, right? But when I dialed in on you, what should have been 3, Jeremy Miller, shout out to you.
Yeah,
A-hole.
shout out Jeremy.
Yeah, you guys were the top pick, so I'm really glad we're doing this. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm hyped.
Yeah.
Super pumped to be here.
So really what we're going to be talking about on this episode is content creation and storytelling, because I think that that's something that most people are interested in, and I think it's really important whether you even are a business or not a business owner, and obviously a lot of this audience is business owners specifically, but content creation and storytelling are super, super important. And I want to start with a little story. Before I got here today, you guys, your boy is in the 1%. I want you guys to know that. So I was at a Restore, and they were doing this little wellness conference dealio. And there's a guy there that had this machine that can track or look up how much inflammation is in your body. It can scan through your skin and look up how much inflammation is in your body based on what you've been eating and what you've been doing throughout your day-to-day life for the previous, I think, 120 days. And he was like showing me this circle of like where most people are. He's like, if you're a smoker, you're in this red area. 90% of the population is in this like middle area, and then he's like the 1% are in this blue area.
The 1%.
I was in the 1%, boys.
I'd be like 99 percentile of literally.
You'd be in the red area. Yeah.
It'd be like wow.
Like, this is a smoker.
Yeah,
you're
showing signs of ultra running, smoking, drinking, and have you thought about taking care of yourself?
So I was kind of proud of that. I just wanted to bring that up. But
I love that, man.
Feels
Congrats.
good to be in the 1%. But really what I want to get into, before we get too into the storytelling and content creation piece of things, is question for you boys. Besides running, which you guys are very, very well known for, what's a completely surprising hidden talent that no one would guess that you guys have? What is something most people don't know about you guys?
I used to professionally race cars.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
No.
I think you knew that. Yeah, because we were on the podcast. Yeah. So I used to, I built my TikTok.
The drifting ones,
yeah,
right?
I built my TikTok following off of dirt racing. So I used to travel the Midwest
I can see that for
and race cars. I've drove an Indy car, and yeah, I've drove sprint
You
cars.
ever crash one?
Yeah, bad. Yeah, crashed one really bad. Like
Fire, flames.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the whole
Whole deal?
car demolished. It'd be like one of those things like right now where we need that guy with the screen and he's like YouTubing like Matt Johnson
you.
crash.
Yeah. Those are nice. Fun
I'll plug it into the episode.
Yeah, my
I'll plug it in now.
My rear wheel like hit the wall and I just went like barrel rolling at like 120 miles an hour.
Did they come running at you like Talladega Nights? Like,
Yeah.
he's on fire.
Oh yeah.
You're on fire.
Oh yeah, dude. Whole team running out, ambulance, everything. It was sick. It was the very very first time I ever turned a lap in like a big boy car.
Were you
And
scared
my
to race
very
after
first
that?
yeah. But like once that you go out, long story short, like once the motor fires up, you flip the switch, like everything else is gone. Like it's just straight, like running, right? Like as soon as the gun goes off, you're in it. Same thing as that. That's why I think that like I grew up racing go-karts and then moved into like big cars. Like I've been racing since I was like, I think my first race I was like 11 or 12, and then I think getting out of that because the military forced me out. And then I think that's why I picked up running because it's very, very, very similar.
I would have thought you got into like biking or something then. Something with more speed, more reckless. I'm surprised you picked running.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm going fast on anything, I want to be strapped in.
Seatbelts in.
Strapped in on a bike, man.
I had a guy on the episode or on the show recently who did the where you go into a plane and it's like a 0G thing where he did a bunch of tests where you go up in the plane like dive bombs. So then you're like floating through the air because he was running a bunch of like healthcare tests up there.
Wow.
I was like, that is savage. That sounds terrifying.
You can't use football. People know that.
I wasn't gonna use football, but thanks for telling me what I can do.
You're welcome. I'm over here in my mind.
He's over here answering. He's trying to answer my question.
I am. I'm trying to think in my head. I'm like, what's his answer gonna be? What's in it? I'm like, oh, you can't be football.
No. I mean, I was gonna use football. What I will say is because I played football, I feel like I pick up sports very well. I got pretty serious into bowling. When I lived in Maryland, my brother and his like crew would like bowl a lot, and I like got obsessed with it. Like I would go like once a week, sometimes twice a week, and I just like put headphones on and I just bowl. Like I have my own ball, I have my own shoes. Like I actually have it here in Austin, but I've only played like twice since I've lived here. And yeah, like I used to be like a consistent like 220 to 250 bowler. And like that's just something like that was just like it was kind of like my golf. It's like very technical. It's something that it requires some level of skill, but it's also still like a hobby activity. But that's probably something that most people don't know. Like I used to make some bowling videos, but like it'd be really more for fun. Like it'd be like post run workout, and I'm just like, it's like literally like weights. Like you're having to like lift up a 14-pound ball and like roll it and control it.
That was your like 2024 is like pickleball now.
Yeah, I'm definitely like I feel like for me like I enjoy picking up sports and like hobbies just because like I don't know, running could be very like monotonous. It's just like this one activity, whereas like all these other sports, and because I played a lot of sports growing up, like I've always found like whether it's bowling, pickleball, football, like it's easy for me to pick up a sport and like to like adapt to it quickly, which I'm very fortunate because a lot of people aren't that way. Where like at times I'm like it's like such a blessing where I'm like I gotta like utilize this. Like I could like if I really dedicated my time to pickleball, like I could probably get pretty good, but it's like it's just time, you know? Like that's the biggest asset we all have.
I never in a billion years would have guessed you were a bowler. That's pretty cool.
I know.
I love skill-based sports. Golfing, billiards, bowling, anything where there's like a archery, like skill-based sports like that. So fun.
Yeah.
Like very present, very in the moment. Like running's cool, but it's not skill based in a lot.
Because you picked up running as a hobby,
For sure.
and then next thing you know, which I mean for me anyways, like it becomes a job,
Yeah.
and it's not a hobby anymore. Because I'm always like, I need to find a hobby because I run and I lift, and it's not a hobby anymore. It's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still like a hobby though.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a choice. Like, I mean, obviously, like in our space now, like getting a chance to like get compensated to run is amazing. But like equally, I think why I like going to races and having fun in terms of like not having to feel like I need to hit a time.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like it's a hobby still. Like someone commented on when I did the all out mile with my buddy Joey. They're like, Matt's just a hobby runner and Joey's like an elite runner trying to get after it. And I literally just commented facts. Like, not that it's like that it's that true of what the comment is, but that doesn't hurt my ego that like I could have fun, but then also when it's time to put like the rubber on the road, like I could also execute and be an athlete that can run fast.
Yeah.
And I just like I like that aspect where it's like, yeah.
I mean,
it's like,
Leadville's not going to be a hobby jog.
correct.
Leadville's going to be like you're going to work.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a time and a place for everything in life. I think too many people get caught up in their identity as a runner or whatever, like fill in the blank of whatever sport they play. And it's so easy to just get your validation through like, oh, I hit a PB every single race I've gone to, or oh, I set a world record time, or whatever it might be, where most people are never going to do those things. So it's like bringing the fun into like an activity that seemingly isn't that fun. Like running for a long time enough and you'll be like, this is kind of boring. There's obviously beautiful parts of it being boring, but like generally speaking, like, come on, like how many people are watching marathons?
This is something we can jump to this. I wasn't planning on bringing up this early, but this is something I've looked at in terms of both of you guys as creators, is that oftentimes it's sort of branded as runners, athletes, ultra endurance athletes. But I would argue at the end of the day, and this isn't an insult to either of you, but I see you more as personalities, more as like just creators, people doing what they enjoy and talking about their journey versus the athlete. Because when you look at an athlete, someone that's very serious about their craft, like Olympic athlete or name your person, they're not creating. They're trying to be the best in the world at what they do, and they don't actually care if anybody follows along or doesn't follow along. You guys look at it from a completely different angle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I see it.
No, I mean, I would say like who, and I feel like I want you to tell me this, but like who you are on Instagram is who you are in person. Right. Like you're very informative. Like even when we're together and just hanging out, like just us, whatever. Like you're informative. You kind of tell it how it is. This is that, and that's who you are on Instagram. Like you inform, you educate, and all of that. And you do that in real life too. And then I feel like I've done a very good job at like diving into who I am by like, I mean, I'm always kind of the funny guy. Like I always crack jokes, and you're always like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I've leaned more into that. I've leaned more into that on Instagram. So yeah, I very much agree with that. Like it's more of a personality thing, because I always say that I said this on a call this morning, is like I feel like I'm an elite athlete who like accidentally became an influencer. Like I didn't ever like strive to have a goal to be an influencer. Like I never would have called myself an influencer. Like my goal was to do hard things and put it on Instagram. And like that's how I just slowly started building my following, and then now like I'm labeled as an influencer. But like I mean, obviously like playing college football and growing up, like your goal was not to become an influencer on social media, and I don't feel like we look at ourselves that way either.
Yeah, I mean, I think that term is just like it's obviously just thrown around to anyone that has a paid partnership video or anything of that sort, right? But I mean, to Matt's point, obviously it's like, I think the biggest thing is like when you are a creator, an influencer, whatever you want to classify it is like most people aren't showing everything about who they are. The challenge of being quote unquote authentic to what he's saying of like, yo, like relatively speaking, like who you represent yourself as online is like pretty much who I get to see in real life. Like, but only like Matt knows that, like you might know that, but like other people that follow me, like they don't fully know that. Right. So they're always going to classify it as like, oh, like you get paid to run. You get paid to make videos online. Where like, yes and no. It's like, to your point, we are all personalities. I think anyone that posts any video online is a personality, right? Some are more interesting than others. Some are more entertaining than others. Some are more educational, that then those people could deem to like grow an audience. But I think every human is a personality, right? Others or certain people have spent more time to like build the craft of building out the brand online, which then turns into opportunities, then turns into dollar signs, and then turns into classifications of influencer or athlete or fill in the blank. But I think ultimately for even athletes, like there's some athletes that are starting to understand the PR side of why it's important to brand themselves better online. Now, guys.
Because, well, athlete, like what you just said, is like every human has a personality. That's what you just
Correct.
said. But not every human knows how to tell a story.
Yes.
And how to tell a very good story. That's where you see the difference is that, yeah, like I'm thinking like Adrian McDonald, right? Adrian McDonald just made a video, like he's going back to Leadville and he's going to, run like never before, right? So, I mean, obviously he's going for the record. And
Savage.
But he's savage. He has 3,000 followers. Because, yeah, he's great. He works with On, but like he should have 300,000 followers. I mean, he's great. He's phenomenal, but he doesn't know how to tell a story. And you can see that on his Instagram.
They're two different skills.
And I mean that with the most respect, FYI.
I think it's also just the fact that like, running's having a moment right now, but in the grand scheme of it, like if we really break down how many people are watching running events, it's not that many. Like how many Olympians do like all three of us know that like we actually wouldn't be able to point them out in a crowd of hundreds of people. So I think it's one of those things where, yes, these athletes are getting like paid to win and to perform, but at some point every athlete goes into that mode of like, damn, like how am I going to make a living off this? And that becomes a story where, I mean, and I totally understand why pro athletes don't like creators and don't like influencers, because like there's people that are amateur and or novices at the activity, but for whatever rhyme or reason, because of storytelling, they're able to they're able to monetize their brand better than someone that is breaking records. But at the end of the day, if you ask someone who ran fifth at the Boston Marathon, no one would tell you. No one could tell you who ran second probably. They wouldn't be able to point them out. And it's not that that's bad or good. It just shows that the sport of running itself has not gotten to the point of stardom where like you're going to know who Travis Kelce is. Like most people will know Travis Kelce, right? He's an NFL tight end. But like when it comes to running still, there's still a major gap in terms of how many eyes are on this activity. And the best way to actually like create a business and or your brand around this thing is like you have to understand how to leverage attention.
Totally. And that's something we will get deeper into in this episode, is that aspect of storytelling. Because like what I'm hearing, just to reflect on what you guys are both saying, is that the skill of being a creator is more rooted in being a good storyteller than it is actually being good at your craft. Doesn't mean that having something or being good at your craft doesn't help. It doesn't mean that doing really challenging things doesn't help create a better story, because it for sure does. But those two things are not always aligned. Like you could be an amazing biker for that matter again. And it's like, if you're a good storyteller, it's kind of regardless of the craft, because you could, again, turn that into something that could grow a larger audience. Is that safe to say?
100%.
Yeah, for sure. I think storytellers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zach Probe. How do you say his last name? Yeah.
Pogreb.
Like
Great.
Zach is like, because you see these influencers, like, and you see these influencers that get to 200,000, right? You have to tell a story to be able to get to 200,000 followers. Like, and to get a lot of followers, you have to be able to tell a good story. But then you see people get to a number, and then their entire page turns to an ad, and they're working with all these brands, and then they stop telling stories, and every single post is a collab, and all of that, and they stop telling the story. But anyone that you see that has 300, 400, 500, 1 million followers, if you look at their page, they're telling stories every single day. And that's you have to tell stories in order to be able to grow.
I mean, I think it's just like if you think about storytelling, it's what every human does. Like you go to happy hour, like you're on a date, like you're with your friends, like people ask you like what did you think about the movie you just saw? Like where was your recent trip? Like, and someone that can tell a good story captivates the audience, even if it's just 3 people that when the cameras aren't recording, right? And that's like my mindset's always been around that. It's like this stuff happens before you start hitting the record button. Once you start hitting the record button, you refine the skill set. You understand better how to keep retention and to do the things that are tactical around social media. But at the end of the day, at the human level, you host a ton of happy hour events. Like people have to be able to storytell within that second. You want to go ask a girl on a date, like you have to be able to storytell why she should believe that she should want to say yes to you. And then when you're on that date, it's like then expressing more of who you are. And like the same thing goes for jobs, same thing goes for networking. Like it's all of it is around storytelling. And if you don't know how to work that muscle, then you will be vulnerable when those moments come. And that's why some people don't put themselves in environments to be vulnerable, to have to share a story.
To quote Steve Jobs, he said the most powerful man in the world is the storyteller. And I think there's so much truth in that. I would like to hear, when did you guys first learn that lesson? Or what's the story, not to be too high level here, of like when you learned the importance of storytelling? I'll tell you mine. I actually remember it was when I used to be a lifeguard in like 16, 17 years old. And there was something really interesting that happened at the pool. And my buddy told the story. It was hilarious. Everybody was laughing. Everybody was super compelled. And then I went to go repeat that same story, and it was just like, it was like the worst thing of all time. Like, it might as well have fallen on deaf ears. Like,
You're like, you know what, just never mind.
yeah, it's like, it bored him to death. And I remember very specifically, there was a girl there. She's like, yeah, I'd rather have Josh tell that story again next time. And it clicked for me in that moment. It was like, we were talking about the same thing, but the delivery was so different, and it was so important as to like being able to engage the human that you're trying to connect with. And I remember very distinctly, it was like, oh, this storytelling thing is kind of important. Same information, different story, completely fell flat. And I'm sure you guys probably have a similar story. But
I love that. I think that what I think of first is like, when I play for college football, like in the locker room, there's always like, you know, cliques within even the full team, but there's certain personalities within the locker room that are able to gravitate an audience, that are able to share a story that happened the night before when everyone was hammered, that for whatever reason, when this person says it, tells it, it's funnier. It's got people more engaged, and there's so many reasons for that, right? Whether it's the delivery, whether it's their personality, their ability to like use humor or whatever it might be. And in those moments, like I started realizing, like, damn, like there's a skill set to this. And for example, a roommate of mine, his name is Chucky Crone. Shout out to Chuck. He's a great storyteller, and for whatever reason, he didn't even play on the team. He was like a GA, like a grad assistant. So he wanted to like be a part of football. He didn't know if he wanted to coach or not, but he was like helped the team out, but like he didn't play. And for whatever reason, his ability to like mirror things that happen in movies and personalities like Leonardo DiCaprio, like he'd be able to like take these like personalities and turn it into like his story. I started seeing, I'm like, damn, there's like a skill set to this. It's not just like Joe Schmo could just replicate that. And in those moments where when I first started seeing, I'm like, yeah, like this isn't just something that you just like, some people are born with, but it is something that can be developed. And if you're someone that struggles with it, like the best way to develop it is be around people that are good at it and start to like pick and choose the areas that you might be able to take from their game.
totally. And I would argue too, anybody listening to this show, is it really does not matter what you do. Building the skill of storytelling will improve your life. It will. Like, there's no getting around it. Whether you want a job or a girl, like you mentioned, or you want to grow your business, or you want to make more money, or you want to have more influence, or you want more people to like you, like, it's at the root of most everything, for sure. What about you, big guy?
I don't know. I was sitting there the entire time just trying to think of like when I learned how to tell a story, and
You're good at it, honestly.
yeah, I mean, but I can't. Yeah, I mean, but I think there's more. Like behind me, I think there's more of the personality than the storytelling like itself. I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that question.
Do you have a favorite storyteller? I can tell you mine. One of mine is actually Will Smith. Or even Matthew McConaughey. Both of them, incredible storytellers. I don't know if you guys have read their books, but so compelling and so captivating. And they're just telling their life story, right? It's nothing that maybe necessarily unique or special, but the way that they tell it is like just captivating.
Dude, I mean, this is so on brand for me, but like Goggins is a hell of a storyteller. Like if you've listened to his book, have you guys listened to it?
I actually haven't.
So like listening to it, there's like what they'll do is and Can't Hurt Me, which is truly how I started running, but that's way besides the fact, is like he has the guy that's reading the book, and he'll read the book, and then Goggins will stop him and actually start to like elaborate on like really like, yeah, that's right, but also XYZ, and like just the way that he just tells the story, you know, with, I mean, you know, his like, you know, personality, and he's like, you know, like, yeah, like this is actually what happened, and I'm going to change this guy's name because he's a little bitch, but like, you know, so I love the way that Goggins tells stories. But no, I mean, unfortunately, like really, like I don't like your story on how you saw that is phenomenal, but I don't have one.
Are there any carryovers or stories in relation to running, or like maybe like basically use running as a metaphor for how content creation is like training for a big race? Because both of you guys have done marathons, ultras, lots of running. What do you feel like are the parallels between doing intense races like that, training for that, and then also content creation and storytelling?
I mean, there's too many to use, I think. I mean, honestly, it's funny because I actually think that the game of business and content is directly correlated around the framework around endurance. And I think the reason me and Matt got inspired by guys like Goggins and Nick Bear and like a lot of these like people that weren't really endurance athletes their whole life, but for whatever reason have been able to utilize that hobby and develop that skill set to then carry over into other aspects of their life. I think the long-term game that you have to play to build out a social brand and a personal brand is no different than training for a marathon and or an ultra marathon. Like, it takes time, it takes sacrifice, it takes discipline, it takes consistency. It takes a level of delusional confidence to say, like, I've never attempted to run 50 miles, but for whatever reason, I feel as if I prep myself enough, if I put in enough reps, that I might be able to do it. Like, I don't think anyone, when they first start making videos, they have a thought of like, I need to be as big as Mr. Beast, or I need to grow to 500K followers. It's like, no, like the magic happens in the work. And I think the same thing with running or content. It's like, you need to believe it's like in your own mind first before it ever happens, before anyone else can see it. And I think that's always been my journey. Like, when I first started making videos when I had 2,000 followers, like, I was at my mom's house not knowing if this is ever going to work, but for whatever reason, I just kept showing up. And even though I had 10 people like the video and 9 of them were giving me shitty feedback, and my friends from high school were like, what the hell is he doing? And my friends from college were like, yo, what's going on? Like, for whatever reason, it wasn't enough. The external noise wasn't enough for me to be like, they're right. And the same thing goes with running, where it's like, oh, you're 25 and you're running. It's like, people are like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you training? Why are you not drinking? Like, and you're getting ready for a long run on Saturday. Like, there's so much doubters and people that have opinions. And I think ultimately the biggest like comparison is the fact that you cannot live your life based on what people are saying and or speaking about what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And there needs to be enough confidence that you believe that that it's gonna work. And that delusion is like, yo, it might not work. It's going to work, but you just don't know when. You're going to hit the sub 3, you just don't know when. And I think like all of that stuff comes into play when you think about endurance training and content, because like you have to put in enough reps to reap the rewards. And for me, like that's turned into 4.5 years of making videos consistently. And the same thing with running. It's like I wasn't able to complete my first marathon the first attempt. Like, it took multiple tries. And then
you didn't even finish?
I didn't. The first time I ever tried to do a marathon, I got to 17.9 miles, and I got full body cramps because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I didn't bring any water or fuel. And I just, like, one hot summer day, I was like, oh, I got new Nike Pegasus shoes. I'm just going to go try to run full marathon.
Had you done any training leading up to that?
At that point, I did like 30 Murphs in 30 days, and I had done some runs, but I had no idea about nutrition and hydration. Like, I literally thought I could just, like, Goggins my way through a full marathon. And
you just seized up and the motor shut down.
I had to call a friend to pick me up. I literally was it was hot as hell in Maryland, and I was under a tree in the shade because I could not move.
Is there any content on this?
There is. It's on. Of course there is.
I love it.
Corey, of course there is.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off the same thing, like I started like I ran my first marathon in 2022. Like it's 2024. And even for some reason today.
You finished though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, better than
I
Matt.
went 259 for sure. Yeah. But I started running in 2021 when I was stationed out in Virginia. And and I didn't know I was going to get into content until like spring of 2022 is when I really started like posting and like learning like what people did. But where I'm relating this is I didn't start until I was 25, 26 running. And I started content at the same time. And if you go back and you look at all my, like today, I ended up, for some reason, I had to go back. I wanted to find a Murph video from last year. And last year, a year ago, when I moved to Austin, is truly when I really started making reels. Like before that, like I didn't know. So I'm like, dude, like this is so bad. Like I'm like looking at like the cuts I made and like just the audio, and it just, none of it looks good. Like it doesn't make sense. And relating that to running, like I just started running. Like I didn't, you have to start. And seeing the same thing is you can learn how to run. Like everyone's a runner. I mean, everyone can run. You just need to start. Like, dude, right now, like I'm coaching this guy that is he was 400 pounds, And he calls me and he's like, I want to run a marathon. I've lost 100 pounds. And he wants to lose another, he wants to get under 300 pounds and run a marathon.
It's amazing.
Like, what's your excuse? You know, you just have to start. And that's the same thing with content. Is like, you just have to start and you're going to learn as you go. I didn't go to college. I definitely didn't go to college for content. I didn't have anyone to sit down with me at a computer and be like, you know, this is CapCut and this is Adobe Pro and this is how you do it. And, you know, you just do it. And that's, I think, is the biggest difference between people that are seeing success and people that are like, man, like, why can't I be like that guy? Well, are you sitting down and putting out the shitty stuff that's getting 10 likes and all your friends are being like, you know, what's wrong with you? You know, come to the bar, blah, blah, blah. You know, no, like, you're just doing it and you are committed to doing it. That's the same thing. It goes for running and it goes for content. Commit to it. It's going to be ugly at first. And you're going to have no idea that it's ugly. You're going to have no clue. You're just going to do it. And then, you know, a year or 2 years down the road, you're going to look back and you'll be like, man, like, look how far I've came. And then, you know, that's when, you know, I mean, 2 years. It's been 2 years now since I started running, and I've won the marathon. I've won the 50K. I've won the 100. And, like, I'm looking back then, and I ran 2:59, and I was like, I am that guy. Like I am him. And now looking back, it's like, I don't even know who that person was.
Actually, the first time I met you is when you won the BPN marathon, actually, which is crazy. And I think I told you this off air. I was intimidated by you, which was the weirdest thing, because now I know you now, and I'm like, fuck that guy. But when I first saw you finish that race, I was like, everyone's like, everyone's like waiting at the finish line, like, Matt Johnson's coming in, and like Nick Bare's like waiting for you, and it was like this huge moment. And I was like, man, who is this guy? This guy's a savage. And then I met you, and everything went downhill after that. But
amen. That's how it all goes.
But speaking of that, the reason I bring that up is because the question that I'm going to start with, and then I'll let you guys, I'll buy you some time to think about it, is, are you running towards something or are you running away from something? And the reason I ask that question is because when I first got into running, it was actually that race. It was the BPN marathon. And I was running towards something because the only reason, literally the only reason I signed up for that race is because I wanted to meet Nick Bare. And it was a BPN exclusive marathon dealio. So I signed up for it. I started training for it. It sucked. It was miserable. I had IT pain on both of my knees. I actually originally signed up for a full, and I was just like so beat up. I actually ended up doing the half. But I was running towards trying to meet Nick Bare. But I've had different seasons. I've also had seasons of where I use running as a distraction, as a procrastination, where I'm maybe really deep in work or a project or in business, and I just feel overwhelmed. And I almost like run as a way to relieve the stress of whatever it is I'm currently working on, to not actually do the thing I should probably be doing. So I've definitely had seasons of both, but I'd be curious as to like, what seasons have you maybe gone through and where are you at now?
Yeah. I started running because I was running away. And before you even said seasons, I literally right in my head, I'm like, yeah, like it changes. There's seasons to it. And I definitely think that like I was not happy with where I was in life. I wasn't happy with the military, and you know, I wasn't happy, and that's kind of why I started running. Like we get stationed. I got stationed in Virginia, and like we thought we were going to go to Virginia Beach. Like we were so hyped because we're like, Virginia Beach, let's go. And the orders dropped, and it was Roanoke, Virginia, and that's literally middle of nowhere, Virginia, like in the mountains. Like there's nothing there, really, truly. And so I got there, and I'm like, man, like okay, like I guess I'm just gonna run miles, and that's all I would do. And so I was definitely running from, you know, like being upset that, you know, I didn't like where I was at in the military and I didn't like my job and all of that. But now it's like, now, you know, obviously going through 10 seasons in that process since 2021, like now I'm running towards the fact that like I want to be great at this. Like that's why I run. Like I run the ultra marathons and I run the hard distance because I want to prove first to myself, but then, you know, to anyone who doesn't think that I am or that I can, that like I'm going to be great at this. And my distance is the ultra distance. And by ultra, I mean the 100, the 200, the 850 across Texas. Like my distance is the ultra. And right now, like I'm running towards the fact that I know that I can be great.
850, that's the width of Texas?
Yeah, 850 miles.
That's like the farthest to the farthest point? That's how wide it is?
Yeah, so it's El Paso to Sabine Pass on the Louisiana border.
How long is it supposed to take?
850 and 17 if I do 50 a day. And if I don't do 50 a day, we're going to do 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
50 a day. How long does it take to run 50 a day? Like how many hours per day is that?
A 12-minute pace It's either 12 or 14 minutes. I don't know if you can math that in your head. Puts you at 50 miles in 12 hours. So
I think it's 14.
14, yeah. So a 14-minute pace puts you at 50 miles in 12 hours. So if I can hold it's going to be hilly as fuck coming out of West Texas. Well, West Texas is going to be flat. Getting into Austin, it's hilly. Once you hit Austin, it's all downhill. Like, literally, it's downhill to the beach.
Well, it's kind of cool. Like, then you have a point where it's like literally downhill from
Austin
here.
is the tipping point. From East Austin, like to yeah. So
from
like,
my house to the rest of the way.
Literally, like, from East Austin, like West Texas would be brutal, but yeah, I mean, I'm not. We're going out to raise money for a veterans charity. I'm not trying to set no records. I'm not. My personal goal is to run 50 a day because that's what I think I can do. 14-minute pace, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Get enough recovery in, and hammer it out. If it takes.
Are you gonna stack a stupid amount of calories leading up to this race just to like build some body fat? I don't know. I've never done anything like this.
I don't think so. Like right now, like I'm stacking a stupid amount of calories right now, and I can't gain any weight. Like, I mean, I'm running. I started this new thing of eating. Like, I'm eating the amount of peanut butter that I eat to try to like get in calories. Like, I swear on everything, I'm eating probably like 4, 5, 6 tablespoons of peanut butter a day.
Let's
like
get him a
breakfast,
peanut butter
lunch, dinner.
sponsorship.
Yeah, Jif, hit me up. But no, probably not. I'm actually HEB. I like the HEB organic. It's a little.
That's
like,
a good
like,
choice.
It's pretty creamy.
That's a good choice. Kirkland, actually.
I like the
Yeah.
Kirkland organic
Dude,
creamy.
savage. Yes.
Love that.
That's fair. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, running towards things, and towards like I know I can be successful in this, and that's what I'm running for. Like, I'm running for the fact that I want to be successful, and I'm sure you have a very similar answer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think back to when I first started running. So much of it was like from curiosity. Like, honestly, I think I was running to like just like seek something that I wasn't familiar with. And like this is like midst of the pandemic, so I was a personal trainer. I had just gotten laid off, but like I wasn't so stressed about like what am I gonna do for money or how am I gonna like make this work. But it was more just like I think when a lot of times when people get into when things happen in the world, there's typically two types of people that play on offense and people that play on defense. And it's super easy to be like, oh my God, like now I need to like stay inside and make sure I get like that. I'm afraid of COVID, that I'm not going to see anyone. And equally, there's obviously like, I understand why people play on defense. It's no different than when people with their health, like people don't take care of their health seriously until like the doctor says you're X amount overweight and you're not looking too well, whatever it might be. But there's very few people that like take control of their life. And even in that moment during the pandemic, like running was just available. So I think for me, it was like reading the stuff from Goggins and Bear and like Jesse Itzler and being like, oh, like being a football player, like that's not all I am. So I think it was even more like me trying to like itch and find like a different identity from me being so caught up in being a football player. So I think it was like seeking or running to like the full potential or a different like aspect of who I could be. I think now when I think about running, like I get it from it's weird because like people always ask me like, yo, like would you run if you didn't get paid to run? And my answer is so clear, and I just know it to be so true, is like I would 1,000% do it. Like the mental clarity and how I feel after it's done is something that I can't really like replace it with something in the current moment. And even more now, I think when I think about running, it's like the amount of people that have gotten impacted through my content and what I've been able to portray online from a lens of it not mattering if you win or lose, showing up, being positive in the moment, even through suffering, and like what that can do for someone internally in terms of how they treat themselves outside of just the sport of running. I think the biggest strength that I've had on this journey of making content and running is like how I treat myself during the ups and the downs. Is like, even when I hurt my hamstring, like I wasn't like, oh my God, like woe is me, like I can't do TSP now. It was literally like, it's a chink in my armor. Like this is what happens when you don't speed train. This is what happens when like you focus on just one thing. So I think
You try to play football again.
Exactly, try to play football again. God damn it. But I think to answer your question, like for me, it's like I feel like I'm running towards like trying to seek what my full potential is, and if that full potential then turns into me like starting my own charity for people that want to get into the sport, or like it could be starting my own charity for something completely different that has nothing to do with running. And what I've learned through this journey is that like when you're open to different opportunities and you're curious to things that you don't have the answers to, the doors start to open up. Like all the things I've done in the past couple of years, like I never wrote down like, oh, buy a house or work with Nike or work with X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank. These opportunities presented itself because I put myself out there to be vulnerable and to potentially get judgment, but also admiration at the same time. And I think that has kind of been like what's pushed me the most is like, I want to see what I can do to my full potential. And whether that makes impact or not, or if it makes money or not, like I'm okay with that result.
I feel like hidden within both of what you guys are saying is this aspect of just following your curiosities. And I think that it's so vastly underestimated. I mean, I can even directly reflect back on the number of times that I've just followed the things that I was interested and curious with it. And whether it turned into business deals or money in my pocket or relationships or whatever, no matter what, just the act of following that curiosity has always been the best route to go. And I remember very specifically, I was at a panel at South by Southwest, and Tim Ferriss said something that I'll never forget. I've seen his panel every year for the last like 3 years. But there's one year in particular where he was talking about a massively underrated business advantage is having energy to do the thing that you're working on. Is that we vastly underestimate is that when somebody's curious or excited or has energy to work on whatever X project, whether it's running or competing or doing ultras, is you will outlast other people, and that is a massive business advantage that I think we so often forget about. The next thing I wanted to tap on was, when did you guys realize that your content was actually having an impact on other people? Is like, because I can even look at my own, I have nowhere near, I mean, between the two of you guys have like, I think like 500,000 followers or something like that. I have like 2,000. But like even with my small group, I regularly get people that'll reach out or even actually the story that most rings true recently. I was running around Lady Bird River, and as I'm running with my headphones on and not really paying attention, all of a sudden some like girl's like waving me down, and I take an earphone out and I look at her and I was like, hey, and she's like, hey, I follow you on Instagram. I love your content. It's so inspiring. Thank you for everything you do. And I was like, oh, awesome. And I gave her a high five, and I was like, for sure, shoot me a message. And then just like went on my run. And it was moments like that for me. It was like, man, okay, this feels worth it for me.
They never get old, do they? No.
It's super humbling.
Gosh, man.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like it was, I mean, same thing. Like it was early on. Like, I mean, it was so early. But like now, what I think is so cool is that it's daily. Like I remember back, I think I told this story on your last podcast where like the first, actually what I want to talk on is the first time it ever actually like hit me that like I was having an impact like in the country or in the world, however you want to say it, was my very first run ever around Lady Bird Lake. I moved to Austin, had to be the next day. I was running around, and this young kid, 17 years old, I think at the time, I'm running, and as I'm running, he's like, and I had like, I don't know, 10K maybe at this point, and I'm coming to Austin, and like people are telling me about this guy like Matt Choi, who, like, you know, is the biggest guy in Austin, and you know, I mean, I'm not anybody now, and you know, as he's running,
yes, you were.
as he's running past me, he's doing this. He goes, and like I saw it out of the, and I'm like, what the heck? And then next thing you know, 20 seconds later, he's right next to me doing the same thing. Like, yo. And I'm like, you know, what's up, man? And he's like, dude, he's like, I follow you on Instagram. Like, you're with BPN. And like just 1,000 miles an hour. He's like, I go to high school. Like I'm down here. And he's like, dude, I can't believe that's you. And I'm like, what? like, yo, what? And you know, that was the day. Like, that was the day I moved to Austin. And for me, it was like, holy crap! Like, this 17-year-old kid like follows my stuff and knows who I am. And I didn't know a single person in Austin. I didn't know a single person. I had no idea who anyone was. And then on the bigger scale, now that I'm seeing, you know, hitting, you know, going from that to like, you know, 200K. When we were just in Hawaii, we were at the Honolulu airport and walking past this girl, and she does this. And I kind of like look at her, and it was I feel so bad. Like, she probably thought I was dumb. Like I went stupid for a second because I couldn't believe it. Cause I usually like, I go race, right? Like in the ultra scene, people know who I am. This is in the Honolulu airport. And she like looks at me, and I just stare at her, and she goes, you're Matt Johnson, right? And I said nothing. Like I said, I must have just stared right at her. And then she like, then she approaches me, like walks up to me. She's like, I follow you on Instagram. I had, the first thing I said is, I go, I'm so sorry. like I was shocked. Like in the Honolulu airport, she's a triathlete. She was coming back from a triathlon, follows me on Instagram in the Honolulu airport. Then we get to Princeville in northern Kauai. In the grocery store, someone comes up to me in the grocery store and was like, yo, dude, like, what's up? Like, I follow you on Instagram. And like, it's crazy, like, to have that type of impact. And, you know, I always say, like, I'm just a small town kid from Iowa. Like I told you guys before we even start, or no, I told you when we started, I was like, I didn't mean to do this. And I never thought it was going to be a goal, but it's just, it's truly, it's what we all want. Like, all the hate that we get, you know, like where people just don't, you know, they don't enjoy what we do. And like, yeah, it's great that we can run and that we can make money doing it. But if you're a good person and you're a good person, and I like to think that I'm a good person, like that's why we do it. And to have that feeling just motivates me even more to keep going. And, you know, so the messages came early on, but it truly, what really impacts me the most is having that human to human where they come up to you and they're like, dude, like you, I'll run down the street, which you probably get this all the time. This is crazy to me now. I'll run down the street. People are hanging out car windows. And they're like, Matt Johnson, let's go. And I'm like, what? Like, it's just, it's crazy. And that's what I get a lot, is the in-person stuff just is phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, I love that. I think the first time I actually realized it was when I was still in Maryland. And it actually wasn't even when I had a lot of followers. Probably similar to the size that you're at, like 2,000, maybe 3,000 people. But I was making videos at the rate that I was making videos on, the consistency that I was making them, even people in my hometown, it started to give them confidence to do it for them, for whatever industry that they're in, right? Whether it's real estate or business or fitness or whatever. But the vulnerability and being okay with not seeing the results. I remember early on in having conversations with people that are like, yo, I appreciate the way you're showing up. I respect the way that you're putting yourself online, even without reaping the rewards. It's super easy, to Matt's point. Like, when you have a ton of people following you now, and a ton is relative, right? Like 200,000 to Logan Paul is like minuscule shit. 200,000 to someone with 1,000 followers is like godly. So it's just a matter of perspective, right? But even in those moments, I love the aspect that even when I didn't have a lot of followers, people were still looking at the ability to stay consistent and the ability to show up as still like a level of inspiration for them to maybe challenge their framework around putting themselves online. And I think that we grew up in an age where, like, we understand social because we grew up with it all these years, but we were kind of at that age where you're like kind of 26 and you're like, like, you're going to go corporate, or like you're going to go this route and make videos online. And I think that it's very easy to hear the opinions of people, especially parents and that people that are your age, like, yo, what are you doing? Yeah. And I think I love the fact that those early years, I was able to still like provide people some level of value, whether it was from inspiration or education, to the standpoint of them maybe trying to pursue their thing because they saw someone else that had nothing, that was coming from the same town that they were, that they could actually attempt this thing. And obviously now, like, a couple years go by, and like, I mean, to Matt's point, man, it's like, it never gets old, those moments where people, like, you make their day just by like existing. Like, it's no different than, like, I had, you know, it was crazy. Rich Roll was at my house a couple of days ago to sauna and punch. And like, I've been a big Rich Roll fan for a couple of years. And like, my buddy Dan Churchill was like, yo, like, you don't mind if Rich comes by and punches? I'm like, it's Rich fucking Roll.
Yeah, are you kidding?
Come on. But even some of the guys that were there, like, some of them knew who Rich Roll was, some of them didn't. But like, some of the guys are like, dude, that's Rich Roll. And what that does for someone, even that moment, that experience, to have a chance to like look up to someone that they've been viewing online that they never had a chance to meet in real life, like, how rewarding that is, it's amazing. Equally, I think it's important to not let that get to your head too much and, like, you know, think that like, oh my God, like, you're all that. Like, cause like, even when I go to Korea, when I went to Berlin and London, like, it's so humbling to get those things, but ultimately, like, we're just human. Like, I don't think that, like, I don't let that get to my head. I think that's like the punchline. I think it's something that is important to understand when you're building yourself online, is like, it's so easy to let the admiration get to your head and then equally let the hate feel like it's overbalancing the admiration, because the hate, for whatever reason, it stings a little bit harder. It's like, it hurts a little bit more. And I think staying even keel within all of the praise and the hate is really important. And it's something that I don't know if it's being talked about enough when a lot of creators are coming up. Like, they don't really understand how to deal with criticism. Like, when you fuck up publicly, like, how do you actually treat yourself? And I think that, like, seeing it from, I've been in the game now, and like, I've gone through all those moments. And I think the ability to show yourself grace in the moments of the lowest and the highest are super important to stay relevant over the long term of this game. So many people are getting into it now. They're young 20s and mid 20s, and like, they've just ridden this high of all the love and admiration. But you do something that from the public eye is not deemed acceptable. How do you treat yourself in that moment when you're getting ridiculed? And I think that's something where you have to show yourself just as much grace in those moments as you do with the moments of people showing you love.
I do want to tap into that. Just to give people context to the direction of this too. I do also want to get to how you guys went from the zero to where you are today and some of the lessons and the tactics learned along the way of like that journey. But before we do, you're hitting on something that I wanted to just briefly go over of just that aspect of the responsibility, I guess, that comes with it. Are you guys familiar with Dunbar's number? So Dunbar's number is essentially, I think it's 150. Somebody can fact check me. But it's basically how many people we can really honestly have a real connection with. It's like, it's just from our tribal days, if you want to talk evolutionarily speaking, is like we were in tribes of roughly 150 people. Anything more than that, humans just can't handle it. It's just too much. And now we live in such a fascinating time in which you can have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people technically following you and paying attention to you and wanting to be a part of your life and pinging you for things and saying hateful things. And it's way more than the human brain was ever supposed to process and deal with. And so where I'm going with this is like, how do you deal with that? One, and like, do you think about even like the responsibility that comes with something like that? Or maybe you don't, I don't know.
Matt's going to do really good on this, on how he handles it, because do you remember when I moved to Austin and we ran together? Yeah. And I just had that, it was the Murph reel, and people were just destroying me in the comments of this Murph reel, bro. like, because I had...
anniversary that is coming up next week.
It is.
Oh,
because
snap.
I had...
Let's do it again.
That was my very first ever viral reel, and Matt and I just ran together right afterwards, and I had a fractured ankle, and I was like running like a fucking penguin, and doing kipping pull-ups, and I mean, just how it goes and yeah. So I want you to talk on that first, because like Matt is the reason why I handle my hate so well now, because we were talking about that when he was. You don't do those no more. I mean, maybe, but you used to do a lot of like the run podcast.
Yeah,
type
I know.
thing.
I know. I've kind of. Yeah.
And but yeah, like we were talking. I want you to talk on that first, because you had a lot of good words for me. I don't remember them right now, but it helped me then.
Matt's retention on information. We gotta work on that.
We know it's at least 360 days, but
Just delegates it to you. You remember it for me.
I love that.
Yeah, you remember. But no, I just remember he told me a lot. He told me a lot of really good things and really helped me out. I wish I could remember him. But
Yeah,
maybe if you say him again, I'll remember him for another 360 days.
We'll do this again next year, right before the Murph,
Yeah.
and then we can
We'll see if you remember
reconvene.
anything. Yeah.
I think there's a. Let me answer your second question first, actually, in terms of like the responsibility. And I think this is something that I learned from after the bib meal stuff. It's like making sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's. I think I live in a world where it's very like laissez-faire. It's very on the go. Like, it's very not by the book, as most runners are. I live my life like literally one day at a time. And obviously there's stuff I live by in my Google Calendar that like it is already pre-planned and things of that sort. But I love living life just one day at a time and being present where my feet are at, because it allows me to be super like in the moment. So now, to your point of like the responsibility that comes with having a following and or any form of influence and or status and or whatever you want to like label it as, like you also need to make sure that now like you have to protect yourself. And you cannot move as if you're moving when no one's following you. Like, you can't just go in and bandit a race. You can't just go and bid mule a race. And when it comes to just the running scene, like obviously there's a right and a wrong way to do things. And I think from my own mistake, I was able to help storytell and maybe teach people that like there are right ways to go about things. And although I know personally, I know every single race, people bandit and bid mule the race. Most times, no one's going to.
What is that?
Banditing
You don't
is when
know the story of him bib muling?
You know that story.
No.
Oh
The
shit!
bib meals are in very shortly.
You got another hour?
Well,
No.
banditing a race is when like you go into a race when you didn't pay for a bib. You just literally like just show up and you run on the course.
Oh.
Like you could run, like anyone could technically run.
Which how many people do that in
A lot.
Austin? The turkey
A lot
trot,
of people.
the yeah.
People
yeah,
just
yeah.
hop in, right?
Got it.
Bib
But if you do that
muling,
publicly, got it.
correctly. Bib muling is where if you utilize someone else's bib to enter the race. So like let's just say Corey enters the Austin Marathon, and for whatever reason the Austin Marathon sold out of tickets. I then use your bib to run, and then I'm running as Corey, not as Matt. So then if you do that, and I did this last January, and I ended up qualifying for Boston for someone else, there was a whole like hoopla of like influencer Matt Choi is a bib mule and a fraud and a cheater and all these things. And that's kind of where like the question of like dealing with negativity and hate and criticism, like how do you respond to those moments? Like it's where I learned it in real life. Like it's easy to listen to Gary Vee and read a book about it, but then like do you actually show up? How do you actually respond to being ridiculed online? And to Matt's point of like the conversation that we had after his Murph video had gotten viral and he was getting a lot of hate, I think it's one, intent matters. The reason that intent matters is because as a human, we can understand why we did something. Was it out of ill intent? Was it out of just not knowing? Like whatever, fill in the blank of whatever it is. It's understanding that if you know that you didn't do this in ill intent, that you weren't trying to cause harm to anybody, like you could live with the fact that, okay, I know that going into this, I wasn't trying to be a bib mule. I wasn't trying to cheat the Murph, whatever people were shitting him on for. And I think that's where it starts, is understanding and questioning yourself. Like, was I trying to actually cheat? Was I actually trying to like break a world record and not do it the proper way, or qualify for Boston and not do it the proper way? If you can answer that and say, no, that wasn't my intent, then I think that's where it starts. From there, actually seeing the comments and seeing how upset and riled up some people are, you have to then take a moment and like showcase some love and some empathy towards why are these people this upset. And I think from there, how do you show your haters love, right? And like biblically, like that's like the hardest thing, is like to show your enemy, treat your enemy as like as if they're your friend, right? And I think that's where my mindset always goes first. It's like, if someone's spending the time to consume this content and for whatever reason they're this upset, how do you show that person love and grace? And you do that over enough times, you start to realize like, one, you're not going to be loved and accepted by everyone, and you shouldn't try to. Like, it's actually ludicrous. Something when I was actually on Ryan Holiday's pod, and he said this to me. He said, the audacity as humans to think that we're going to be liked and admired and loved by everyone is the most audacious thing. Like, who are we to think that we're going to be loved and admired by everyone? So, like, if you have 10%,
how brutal would that
20%,
be to be?
It would be crazy.
To be loved by
It
everyone.
would be crazy.
Like that wouldn't be fun.
It would not be fun. So, like, to have 10% of your audience or 15% of your audience that doesn't like you, like, that's part of the game. That's part of signing up. And even outside of influencers and creators, you go to you go to work every single day, you'd be bullshitting yourself if you say you liked every single coworker, that you liked all your bosses. It's BS. It's learning the ability to treat people with respect that might not agree with you, and showing them grace and love at the same time. It's easy to be upset at the person that doesn't agree with you, but how do you show them love? And I think that's where my mind goes all the time when it comes to people that are hating and or have disagreeing opinions, and even people that agree with me. It's like finding the balance between all of that. I think it's so easy to like ride the high of like the applause, but equally what happens in the hate. And I think that's where my mind goes. But yeah, that's typically how I treat it. It first starts with intent. Is the thing I'm getting hated on for really what I was trying to do? And then if you can answer that confidently, and that's a no, then I think it's really easy to show those people love. If you honestly got caught trying to do some shady shit, then like it's harder to show up with love and grace because you kind of got caught.
Because you're gonna naturally, as a human, try to defend yourself.
Correct.
Yeah. Be like, no, that's not true. Like, that was a big thing with me, which I think you know about. I'm not sure, but when I broke my leg, I hopped on steroids, and the big problem is that me brand new to this whole entire sport. Like, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not running, I'm not racing. It's not a big deal. So I looked up, you know, the healing properties, and I hopped on testosterone and Mastron. And Mastron's illegal in marathoning, highly illegal because it's a healing property, along with BPC 157, which is a peptide. That's another healing property, also banned by the USDFA, whatever. And I made a post saying this is how I healed my leg in 6 weeks, and I literally posted it. Like I literally made this reel, and I said this is what I did. And at that point, like I got a text message from somebody, and at that point in time, like I was wearing a Chorus, and Chorus was supposed to like try to get me into Leadville, and they're like, there's no longer an association here, like you need to delete the reel, like this is, and they XYZ, which is the first thing I did is I'm like, I sat back and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, was I trying to cheat? Like, right? Was I taking this to win the marathon? Was I taking this to run faster? No, I'm literally sitting on my couch with a broken fucking leg. I can't even run at all. Like I was trying to heal myself faster. Did I make a fuck up? Yep, I fucked up. And I owned that. Now, like, I'm not talking on hate. I'm just literally speaking on the bib mule thing. Like, did I make a fuck up? Yes, I did. Was I trying to cheat the system and become a better athlete than everyone else? No, because I wasn't running. Did Matt make a fuck up? Yes, he did. Was he trying to qualify someone else for Boston? No. But, like, then it's what you do in that moment that truly defines who you are. Because what I did is I could have easily been, like, deleted the reel and completely never spoke about it again. And then, like, people are going to see it. There's a screenshot of, like, me sending a message to someone saying, like, yeah, I'm on Mastron, but FYI, it's illegal in marathoning. Don't do it. And there's a screenshot that circled around Bat City. Jeff Cunningham saw it. Everyone saw it. And, like, at that point, it was literally, I remember calling my mom, and I'm like, Mom, like, what the fuck do I do? And she's like, you do the same thing that you do with everyone else, and you own it. And, she's like, you don't hide from anything. You literally just say, yeah, fuck yeah, I did. I'm like, okay. So, like, yeah, I did it. And literally, I talked about it on the Jeremy Miller podcast, and when that, like, so many people messaged me and was like, dude, like, it's so cool you opened up, because I'm like, yeah, test me now. Like, you test me now, I'm cleaner than clean. But then, no, I fucked up. I made it oops. So I love that. Like if you fuck up, if anyone out there is listening to this and you fuck up, your number one step is you have to own it. Immediately own it and say, yes, I messed up, as long as your intentions were not ill. I mean, still own it if it was ill, but not having ill intentions and being like, yeah, like I wanted to qualify someone else for Boston, or yeah, I wanted to beat everyone. That's why I started taking a drug that's banned in marathoning. It's just not true. And being able to own that is the biggest aspect to still being able to take a step forward and having people still respect you, because that could have ended you. That could have ended me. But we both took the right steps we weren't trying to do ill. Yes, we did it. Sorry. Moving on. And people will either be like, hell yeah, I love that you did that, or they'll say, no, fuck you. And then we don't care. Whatever. See ya.
There's plenty of those. I think with the mixture of us two, there's plenty of those.
I do think that's like
we saw all of them at the Zilker Relays.
We definitely there's a lot of them live in Austin. A lot of them are proper runners. Yes. Which is the funny. This is what I'm gonna say something. And
dude, don't get me started on this, because I know where we're going.
No,
I'm ready. I'm gripping this mic. I'm ready.
The dopest thing is that running's having a beautiful moment. There's so many new people into it. There's so much growth happening at a rapid pace for brands, for regular people, and that's a beautiful thing. Equally, there's a lot of gatekeepers. There's a lot of proper runners. There's a lot of old school 1%er runners that, for whatever reason, it's like a boys club. It's like they don't want new people in it. And then they see people that are coming up in the space, and like their first response, and it comes from an insecurity, is to ridicule or hate them or say that they're slow or that they're X, Y, and Z, you fill in the blank. And I think it's so funny because it's running is so much for the general pop. It is so welcoming. It is so about the community. It is so about new people getting into it and all those things. But equally, there's a sliver of it where it's very dark, where it's very, I'm faster than you. Like, everything is built around speed. Everything is built around the status of what kind of athlete you are.
But guess what? They're all fucking nerds, and they are all
Well, let's not all say that they're nerds. But no, I just think that it's an interesting dynamic, because a lot of new people that get into it, they're like, oh my God, the running community is so welcoming and all these things. But equally, you go to certain other clubs and you go to certain other groups, and it's not as welcoming. And like the toxicity and the pettiness that happens within the running space is also very toxic. So there's a lot of elite runners that I'm friends with that I know that are like, yo, like the club that they're in, the association that they're a part of, like they start to not appreciate and enjoy running anymore because of the people. So equally as much growth and as much popularity as running has gotten for the Gen Pop, there's like that equal side of it where most of the time the hate is coming from the people inside. which is it's unfortunate. And I think it's bound to happen in any sport that there becomes mass adoption.
Totally. I think a big piece of that too is that you're challenging their identity, which in turn, if you're not a secure person, you respond with anger and hate and lashing out. Because that's what you're doing, right? Is like when somebody in any category, whether it's running, racing, any sport, any endeavor, business even for that matter, is that when you're all of a sudden reaching this point where maybe you're more popular or maybe you're faster or maybe you're better or maybe you're more innovative, is that challenges who they are as a human because they have such a strong identity attached to like, no, I'm this thing in this category and I've always been the best. The second you challenge that, that's how insecure people respond.
It's relating it like back to football, right? Where you're like, I play football to win. I'm here to win. I want to win. And then you have people that are slowly trickling into your team or into your locker room, and they're like, I'm just here to have a good time. You know, I mean,
Sure.
that's exactly what it is. And if you are in that like I'm here to win mentality, and someone's coming into your space, I don't want to say to your team because we don't really have teams in running, but someone's coming into your space and they're like, I'm just here to have a good time, like let's rock and roll. You're going to be very upset. So like, I mean, you know, it
makes sense.
It is what it is. Yeah, completely understood. You're a fucking nerd, but completely understood. Completely understood.
Matt Johnson's words.
I feel like you're talking to someone very directly. Like, I feel like there's like this image in your head of this face of this human.
Yeah, I
It's on your wall at home.
I can't catch a lawsuit. That's my problem. I have people like not defamation. Like I can't catch a lawsuit right now. So
Yeah, but let's avoid that, buddy.
Moving on.
Let's avoid that advice.
I'd clip that. I'm gonna send that to Drew, and Drew's gonna be so proud of me.
Shout out to Drew Darby.
I do want to move on to the next topic of more or less how you guys went from ground zero to where you are today, because I think that'll be super practical for people. Before we do, though, I want to touch on that piece that you both hit on of the intentionality behind things. This is sort of like a side way to approach of something that I've been thinking about and only recently discovered, maybe not that long ago, relatively speaking, maybe 3-4 years ago, of just like how important honesty is and how content creation has been a beautiful form to hold me to a higher standard that I didn't necessarily expect. For whatever reason, this comes top to mind, and it's not even something that I created content on, but I walk around this trail next to where I live every day for the most part, 2 to 3 times a day. And I walked by this beetle that was on the ground, and it was flipped on its back, and its legs were like kicking. And I walked by it and thought nothing of it. And then I thought to myself, what if somebody just saw me like walk past this? And this could have been, it was just a beetle, but it could have been a bird or whatever and anything. And I actually literally turned around and I like helped this beetle up and like put him back on his feet so that he could go crawl on.
Yo, I did that today. I swear
Really?
to God. I swear to God, outside my house. Literally outside my house. What I did is I brushed it to the side with my foot, and then like I watched it like, you know, like it came off the concrete and landed in the grass, and I saw it just kicking there, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like went over and like turned the beetle over and like off he went.
But okay. Okay, this here's what I love about this though. This feels like this like stupid little thing that doesn't actually matter, but it does, right? Because like what we do when the show's not on or when the camera's not on matters just as much as when it is on. And I feel like there's so much carryover in those things.
It's so weird that you said that because I remember doing.
I think they've all been flipping up down lately because I've been seeing a ton of these things.
I did that earlier today, and I remember just thinking of the situation like 20 minutes later. I'm like, that was so odd. And then you just said that, and it like gave me the heebie-jeebies, man. Like,
yeah,
it was weird.
It's true though. It's important what we do when the camera's not on. It really is.
Yeah.
I think it's more important. I think it's super easy to be cookie cutter and like clean on your PR when it comes to social and all those things, but like how you show up in the real world, treating people that are serving your coffee, that you're getting your food from, like I think all that shit, like that should be put on a pedestal. And for most people, they just think like, oh, I need to be on point because the camera's on. Like, no, like, you should just be on point. Like, the reason that it's so easy for me to show up is because like this is just who I am. This is how I operate. Whereas like I think if you're trying to show up for the camera, if you're trying to show up because it's on, then like is that really the full version of who you are? I think it's just showing up every single day and treating people with respect, whether they know you or not, whether they're showing you admiration or hate. It's just like it's how most of the world, if people actually adopted that framework, we would treat each other with more respect. And I think in Austin, it's actually the vibration is so high where I think it happens a lot in Austin, where everyday people are just so kind. Like I know so many servers, people I go to get coffee from at local spots. I know them by name, and like we just chit chat. It's not that I'm best friends with them. It's just in that moment, it's just human. It's like, yo, like I'm sure you're having a rough day too. You might have not gotten that much sleep, whatever it might be. And it's like just giving everyone with respect. It's like the one thing I learned from my corporate job was the ability to treat the janitor how you would the CEO.
Yeah, I love that one.
And I think it's so easy to treat the founder, Rich Roll, founders of companies with respect. Can you do that to the person that's going to be making your meal? The person that's going to be cleaning up the shit that you just left in the public toilet? Like, I think all those things matter.
Couldn't agree more, man. Let's get a little practical here. So if you were to give advice to your younger self, right? I mean, you both have grown very healthy followings at this time in one, we could say, relatively short amount of time for the most part. Even 4 years isn't that long, generally speaking. What would you maybe do the same? What would you differently? And what's maybe some advice that you'd give to yourself if you were to do it over again?
Yeah. I think a lot back to when I was in the military and how much like now I look back and I would like, I'll come up with like a real idea in my head to relate it back to the military and I'll have no videos. And I'll have like, I probably have 5 videos from the entire time I was out training, doing something while I was in the military for 9 years. And then coming to Austin and learning, you know, from him where he's like, you know, the document don't create, right? And I'm like, man, like documenting things, even if you're not a creator now, document things that are happening. Like we have this freaking device that is thousands of dollars in our hands that people are having.
I don't have an iPhone, so mine's not thousands.
That's true.
Matt Choi already called me out about it.
People that are having, you know, people have, you know, think about Isaiah. Isaiah has 10 million on YouTube and he films 90% of his videos with this. And there's so many times that I look back and I'm like, man, like I wish that I had that video. And I think that people get so upset with us, like, you know, or, you know, like upset at Matt or upset at me. It doesn't matter whether like, you know, fucking typical recording, you know, blah, 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 like just live in the moment. But there's, yes, I agree while living in the moment, but also like there's times that I think back on and I'm like, why didn't I get that on video? Like why didn't I have that? Man, I wish I had that moment. And, you know, because that is the society that we live in. We don't live in the society of the early 2000s anymore. We don't live in the society of the 90s. Like we have access to tell all these stories that we're talking about through social media, and you need videos to do that. You can still live in the moment and record. And I remember a single time watching Matt when we showed up to Zilker, because that was the Zilker relays was kind of like when we started like becoming closer. Showed up to Zilker, and I remember him walking up to the table to get his bib, and he was in the moment, eye to eye contact with the guy holding his phone at his hip, recording the process of him grabbing his bib. And I just remember seeing that, like it's still clear as day to me. Like I still remember seeing that and being like watching him live in the moment, but still documenting the process at the same time. You know, like you don't need to miss the process by documenting it. I can't tell you how many times I went into, you know, I was out in Hawaii and I was, you know, enjoying the trails and holding my phone like this, but still seeing it with my own eyes. You're not losing out. And I think that's a misconception where people are like, just live in the moment. You can do both. And so like my advice to people that are creating or thinking about creating, in my very young, you know, just getting into content creation like I'm a baby, is at some point, if you start now, at some point in a year or two, you're going to want something from now or 5 years ago. And you're going to have an idea come to your head and you're going to wish that you had it. And you're not going to if you don't start documenting now. So the number one thing in content creation is document, because holy shit, if I would have documented so many of the things that I've done in my life, the stories that I could tell, the stories I don't have access to, the stories I probably don't even remember right now because I didn't document it. So be able to be invested and have the capability of seeing it with your own eye, but at the same time, just understand that you can press record and you can still live in the moment.
Real quick before you go, Matt Choi, to ping off your point about even remembering it, real quick funny story. So there was a high school that there was some explosion that happened, like one of the spaceships that was supposed to go up, they were supposed to send a bunch of people that weren't astronauts into space. The spaceship exploded. I can't tell you exactly which one it was, but this was, I think, in like the 80s, maybe the 90s, but the spaceship exploded. And then there was a teacher at the time when this happened. Everybody knew about it. It was a huge deal, dramatic, super sad. And he documented, he asked them, where were you? What were you doing? And like, what was going on when this all happened? And he documented it, right? 3 years went by. He went back to all these exact same students and asked them the exact same question, like, And this was a major thing. Like, I'm sure we could all here remember 9/11, like where we were, whatever. Here's the funny thing. 3 years later, he came back to all these students and asked them, where were you? What was going on? Same 3 questions. Every single one of them got them wrong. Not a single person got the response to like where they actually were, who they were with, correct, which tells us our memories are horrible. Yeah. And so like even the things in the stories that we think we remember happened are drastically inaccurate. And so like even remembering what happened or even the accuracy of what happened, having some form of documentation is super fucking helpful.
Yeah, and just leaning into that, like that's what really sucks for me the most is that like I would love to tell more stories through videos of what I did in the military. And like, you know, outside of just talking about it, like where I joined as a combat medic and then I became a truck driver because I fucking failed out of medical school. And, you know, then I worked at, you know, it doesn't matter. But
you went to medical school?
Well, to be a combat medic in the military, and then I literally failed because I was a dumb child and decided to not try. But still growing up in that process. But, you know, there's so many times I look back and I'm like, man, like I wish I could tell this story or use this clip to tell this story and you know, and I don't have it. And, you know, so my advice is, you know, if you are going to get into content creation, is just start documenting it now, because whether you get into it tomorrow or whether you get into it in 2 years, you're going to wish you had it. That's why kids are opening up presents on Christmas morning, right? What are parents doing nowadays? Because they want it. And, you know, that's the same thing. Like what you're filming, you're going to use later. So use that. And in that process, document things, create things, and tell stories. That's how I grew my following. I documented, I created, and I told a story at the same time of doing elite hard things. Like that's as simple as I can tell it. I mean, you told me to be a storyteller when I had actually, can I speak on that?
Please.
Like, you know, I broke my leg from overtraining and over racing and fractured my leg in 3 spots. Super upset. Matt's like, let's get Sun Life. We met at Sun Life and we're sitting there talking. And I'm like, dude, like I think I had 50,000, 40,000 at that point. I'm like, my entire Instagram is nothing but running. Like me running down the road, me posting about running, me saying I ran this many miles. Like, I'm like, now that I can't run and my identity has been revoked, because that was all my identity was a runner to me. I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, now is when you dive into telling stories. And I'm like, what does that mean? And we're sitting there and he's like, when you tell, you know, in order to grow a following, you need to be able to tell multiple stories. And he's like, you're going to tell stories to the running community on this is me running. Then you're going to tell a story on this is me being funny and making a meme. This is me telling a story on how to educate somebody on carbohydrate intake during a race. This is me being able to tell somebody how to carb load before a race. And this is me being able to tell a story about this is who I am. And I remember going back and looking at his profile at that time, and it was literally easy as A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. Like that's literally how I saw it in my head, where it was like he would post a reel of doing an all-out mile, and then the next time that he posted a reel, it would be a running interview, and then the next time he posted a reel, it would be a track workout. So you're seeing a all-out mile, then you're seeing an interview of somebody, then you're seeing an educational track workout on this is how I do a track workout, and then you're seeing I'm going to use this now, this is my Chipotle order. Who gives a fuck? Everyone does. I don't understand why. That's awesome.
I watched it. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I watched it too. But look at all these stories. You go look at his profile, and it's literally A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. He's telling all of these stories. That's how you grow a following. Is like you have to, because, and I think you said this to me, and this is what I took away from it, was if you keep telling the same story over and over and over again, you're just going to keep hitting the same exact audience. Mm. And if you already have that, if that audience is already following you for running, why would you keep telling a running story? Are you just trying to entertain the 40,000 that you have? No, you need to be able to tell a different story and grab from different pools of people. And that's what you taught me, and I 100%. Don't get a big head here. I 100% attribute like me learning how to do that to that single conversation right there. Like I'll never forget that conversation. That took me from 40,000 to 200,000 easily. 100%.
That's gotta feel good, huh?
It's amazing. But I think the amazing thing is that Matt's ability to lean into the vulnerability and maybe his own insecurity as to why he wasn't willing to showcase like different elements of who he is actually the reason that that the impact has happened. Like I've had many of those same conversations with many of people, and most of them don't do anything about it. The few that have, it's awesome for me to sit at this seat and be like the Matt Johnsons, the Joe Fairs, the Jeremy Millers. Like I remember having 3 different conversations with all 3 of them, and when I started to see their content starting to do very well, I was like, it's amazing. It's amazing how one conversation, just one framework shift, can help change the trajectory of someone's life, you know?
Change a life. Exactly what I was going to say right there. Like, I mean, he took me from, I don't know, I mean, to be transparent, like making maybe $2,000 a month in brand deals to a full-time income because of literally what he told me, to where like I am comfortably living off of a fucking conversation over an acai bowl. Like,
Sun Life.
Shout out Sun Life.
Shout out,
Give me a
shout out
sponsor.
Sun Life. Shout out Sun Life. Ship me all those new bars you just came out with. I love you, Khalil. Bye.
That's amazing. You know, something to Matt's point, I'm glad that Matt actually remembered the document Don't Create. Look, he's got more than a 360-day memory. Let's fucking go.
No, I don't. That was in September. Put on your calendar
I love
to
that.
text me in September and be like, what did I say to you?
I love that. I love that. I think that's a great tip. Even when you ask me, like, do you have video of that first marathon? It's like, Corey, of course I do. I documented all of it with my 2,000 followers. I think the advice I would give to my younger self and or someone that wants to get into content is to find different ways to like get comfortable in the unknown and seeking curiosity. And I think really how that comes into light for a lot of people is by being a student and never thinking that you know it all, and always being willing to humble yourself and learn from someone that might be doing something a little bit better, that might be executing their business a little bit more efficiently, fill in the blank. And I think that's been one of the key pieces to my success is that before I had that conversation with Matt, it's like my mentor telling me about the word fluency. And that's pretty much what I told Matt that day was like, the most successful people in the world have high fluency. They can sit in a room with investment bankers. They can sit in a room with creators. They can sit in a room with athletes. They can sit in a room with business owners and entrepreneurs, and then employees, and then janitors. And for whatever reason, they find themselves very comfortable, that they can relate, they can talk, they can have empathy for all those people. And I think that moment when he started to put that into my mindset, into my software, I started to seek guidance and education around all of those things. And I think for creators, it helps you build confidence in showcasing different elements of who you are. The entertainment stuff of what I eat in a day, eat 2 burritos and then go run a mile. Like all these things were elements of me running still, but for whatever reason, there's like a small tweak in how you portray it and how you create a different framework around it. And I think it's important as humans, not just entrepreneurs, not just creators, is to always be a student. The moment you think you know it all, the moment you think that you made it, there's always going to be someone that wants it a little bit more. And I think as humans, it's really easy to, after you put a couple wins on the board, to be like, I made it. Like, I'm good. Like, it'd be super easy for me to be like, I don't have to, like, consume Hormozy or Gary anymore or people I used to look up to when I was, like, getting to this point. But all of us are evolving. And there's always room for improvement. And I think that's kind of always been my mindset ever since I started 4 years ago and into now. Like, I think there's younger people, older people that are doing things better than I am. And I think I'm always willing to be like, yo, like, how do you see this here? Like, what platforms are you using to do this? Or how are you like cutting this certain video? Like, even now, like my whole team that helps me on YouTube, they're all younger than me. They have like my thumbnail guy, my packaging guy, shout out to Tyler. Like, he's like 24, 25. Like, that doesn't hurt my ego at all. If anything, I'm like, I need to tap into younger people because they know this shit more. And I think understanding that you can learn from anyone, that is a secret sauce because it also helps you stay humble. The worst thing you could be is someone that's so big, ego-headed that like you think you made it, that you think you got it. Like, everywhere I go, I feel like, I can learn from anyone.
You need help. Yeah.
I love that word fluency you used. I've not heard that expressed like that. That's
Shout
good.
out to Brian. He's gonna love that. That's his favorite fucking word.
Before we wrap things up here, I have a round of rapid fire questions.
Oh, shit.
So it's whatever the first thing as it comes to mind. Just gut reaction to these questions.
If I say some dumb shit, you got to cut it.
Okay, that's fine. We're not gonna cut it. But And so, well, maybe we'll make Matt go or Choi go first, and then Johnson can go second. Is that cool?
Sweet.
Okay. We'll buy you a split second.
Wait, am I getting the same questions?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I gotta go every other. That way, like he can't hear my question. No, that's true.
Do every other.
Ideal content length.
70 seconds.
Oh, you?
I was gonna say it depends on the platform. If it's on Instagram, under 15 seconds, because you have to keep the audience, like everyone's attention spans off.
I like the best time to post content: morning, afternoon, or evening.
7 p.m.
Lunchtime.
Favorite content creation tool:
CapCut.
CapCut.
video or written content.
Video.
What's written?
Trendy topics or stick to your niche.
Hybrid approach.
Completely off the wall shit.
Oh, biggest marketing pet peeve.
Influencers. That's what came to mind.
That's good.
UGC.
What?
User generated content.
Oh,
Same thing. Influencers.
Yeah, in a different way though.
If you could co-create any piece of content, what would it be and who would it be with?
Matt Choi, fastest smile. I've been asking.
Okay.
I've literally been asking, and he's
Yeah, he's busy, bro.
I know. I would do. Actually, I would like the mile challenge with Gary V.
Oh, does he run?
No, but we'll get him to run one of those.
What's your inspiration source? Like, where do your ideas come from?
I have to consume content in order to create content. So in order for me to create something, I have to see about 3 or 4 videos, and then I start formulating like little one-off ideas from each video, and I throw them all into my own, and like it is my video, but I have to consume it in order to create it.
I actually somewhat agree with that as well. Like consumption to then produce is where a lot of my inspo comes from.
Do you obsess over the numbers, or the analytics, or do you focus on big picture?
Big picture.
I obsess over the big picture.
Repurpose or create fresh? Which strategy do you favor?
Fresh.
Hybrid. I mean I don't know. I'm just now getting into the point where I can start repurposing. I'm gonna repurpose a reel actually on Mother's Day for my mom. Literally one that I've already posted. It's like when we crossed Leadville finish line together. I'm gonna repost that on Mother's Day because back then I only had like 40K and it went for like 80K. So I'm very interested to see what it does now. So I've been told a lot to repurpose, especially on multiple platforms. So I've never repurposed, but I'm going to start leaning into that.
I like it. Boys, thank you for being on the show. I want to acknowledge both of you for so many things. This is very vulnerable for me, but you guys have both had a very big impact on my life, from not only content creation, but just like how to show up, how to be yourself, how to be a good storyteller, how to manage a lot of opinions of other people, and to do it in a graceful way, even if it's a punch at the ego at times. And I want to acknowledge that from both of you. So thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Humbled, man. Thank you so much.
For sure. Before I ask my last question, what's your plug? Where can people find you guys?
I think you guys know. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
As if his head couldn't get any bigger.
That was the last thing I ever expected to hit. That was the last thing I ever expected to come out of his mouth.
I'm saying from the just the platforms. Like
yeah. Instagram.
Yeah. Instagram.
Look up the name.
I'm definitely on Instagram, TikTok. Just launched a YouTube. Super excited to get that
Love
going.
that.
So, yeah, I'm hyped. Cool. What do you got coming up? Big thing coming up. Anything?
Brooklyn half and then High Rocks.
You're doing High Rocks?
Yeah, June 1st.
Which one?
New York.
Oh yeah, you didn't see him pushing the sled, bro. Bro was struggling. I mean, I'm 100 pounds, so like.
The sled's no joke.
You're doing it solo or doubles?
Solo.
Cool. I've done a couple of them.
Any big ones? Any big thing? I mean, I like Leadville, but like
Leadville.
that's it. Yeah.
Leadville after that.
I wish I could be at Leadville, but I'll be in Alaska.
I'll be in
Nice.
Italy. I'm not going to Leadville.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah.
Fair.
Interesting.
Oh, the chorus thing.
No.
Okay.
The last High Rocks I was at was the most miserable experience that I've had in many years of my life. The night before we went to an Italian restaurant, and I rather got food poisoning or something happened, and I was competing doubles with my buddy Connor Meekins, if you guys know him.
Yeah.
Love that guy. And
Awesome guy.
the only reason I did the race is because I couldn't let him down. It shows you the power of accountability. But I kid you not, I was miserable. My face was pale. We got to even like the burpee section. I did one burpee and I looked over at him and I go, I'm going to shit my pants. I cannot do any more of these. And he did every single burpee. We got to the wall ball section, same situation. I was like, dude, if I squat one more time, I'm going to shit myself. And he did I basically ran 5 miles and he did a high rock.
Have you ever shit yourself on a run?
Yes.
I just shit myself literally like last week for the very first time on accident. It was horrible.
On accident?
Yeah, like I had no idea it was coming.
Like you thought it was a fart?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It was just straight shit, like right away.
Did you know you had diarrhea or no? Wow.
Found out quickly.
You quickly.
Quickly. Shout out barbell shorts, baby. Kept them in there. Let's go.
God, what a terrible thing. Last question. It's whatever your best business advice is. Obviously, you guys are really good at storytelling. You're really good at creating content, but obviously there's a business component and there's a large audience that listens to the show that's interested in business. What's maybe the best piece of advice you would give to yourself or somebody else in that situation of like early content creation, business starter? What would you tell them? What's your best business advice?
Don't change who you are because someone else is successful at it. So like if you're seeing someone else if you're looking at Matt Choi and you're saying, man, like he's successful, I need to make myself like him, you are absolutely fucking wrong. Be you, completely, fully transparent. Like that's another thing that came out of that conversation where I leaned more into being me. Like I didn't lean into like memes. You know me. You know me. How like I'm the funny guy. Like that. I'm not changing that about me. Like I just started leaning more into me and who you see on Instagram, the edgy, the cussing, the like that is who I am, and that is what has gotten me into a place where I'm being compensated to run because brands are coming to me and saying we love that you are you, and that you're different than everyone else. And so my biggest advice on business is like if you see someone, don't try to be like them. Like, yeah, like you can pick up some of their strategies, but don't change who you are. Don't try to fit the mold of being them. Be you.
Great advice.
I love that. I think I'd say having self-awareness on like what you want to spend your time on. I think early on as a creator, like you're having to do everything. And at some point you have to make decisions on like what is going to be the first hire, like where am I going to allocate resources to start doing X, Y, and Z. And I think something that is very beneficial, and it's something that a lot of people ask about like management, like should a creator get a manager? Like I think honestly, no, especially early on. I think you should try to understand and figure out how to negotiate. And if you're comfortable negotiating, you should also understand how to like do the post-production of content and all the things. Like you have to have your hands in a lot of things to start out. You're not going to be the best at all of them, but before you hire somebody to start allocating resources to, you need to understand how to do it first so that you can then see what kind of work they're actually giving you. So I think a lot of that comes with self-awareness and understanding like where you want to spend your time as you continue to scale and grow bigger.
Matt Johnson, Matt Choi, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Hey friend, thanks for listening to the show, and if you have any feedback for me about the show or any other guests that you'd want to see in the show, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience and figuring out how I can provide the best value possible to the people listening to this show. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out my 3 Tips Tuesday newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips every Tuesday specifically for the health and fitness entrepreneur to help them attract new leads. If you press the link in the description, it'll take you directly to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's something for you. If you end up finding it helpful, you can just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.